The hotel looked ordinary at first glance, the kind you forget the moment you drive past it. A low building wrapped in pale neon light, flickering like it was struggling to stay awake. The night around it was too quiet, as if the forest nearby had agreed to stop breathing. I remember stepping out of my car and feeling that strange pressure in the air, warm, but not alive. The gravel under my shoes didn't crunch properly. It felt muffled, like something underneath was swallowing the sound. Above me, a single sign buzzed softly, its light bending and dimming in slow pulses, almost at a heartbeat that wasn't mine. The receptionist didn't look up when I entered, just slid a key across the counter, already waiting, as if she knew I was coming long before I arrived. The hallway stretched too far for a building this small. Every step forward felt delayed, like the corridor was deciding whether I was allowed to pass. My room was at the very end. When I opened the door, the air inside was warmer than it should have been, not freshly heated, more like it had been held in for too long. The mirror across the room was already slightly fogged, even though nothing inside was cold. I told myself it was just humidity, just old plumbing, just tired eyes. But then I noticed something else. The bed sheets were already wrinkled, as if someone had been lying there before I arrived. And the bathroom light was still on. That's when I saw it. The hotel sat at the edge of a quiet road, far past the last stretch of streetlights. Night pressed against the building like damp cloth. Fog moved low across the parking lot, sliding over cracked gravel that barely made a sound under my steps. The air felt wrong the moment I entered. Warm. Not comforting, just held. The lobby light buzzed above me, pale and unstable, flickering across old wallpaper that smelled faintly of dust and something metallic beneath it. The receptionist slid a key toward me, without looking up. Her finger stayed still even after I took it, as if she had already finished this moment before I arrived. The hallway stretched longer than it should have, carpet soft underfoot, but muffling each step too deeply, like the building was swallowing sound instead of carrying it. Doors lined both sides, numbered neatly, but the numbers seemed slightly out of order when I tried to focus on them. Room 312. My key turned easily, too easily. The door opened with a breath of warm air waiting inside. The room was already heated, not recently, not freshly, but occupied. The mirror on the far wall was slightly fogged, even though no steam lingered in the air. The window was closed. The vents were silent. Still, moisture clung to the glass like something had been standing too close to it for too long. The bed sat in the center of the room, sheets uneven, one side pressed down. Not fully, just enough to suggest weight that had only recently left. I stood still, listening. The silence wasn't empty. It had layers. A faint rhythm came from the bathroom, soft, measured, like breathing that didn't want to be noticed. I didn't move at first. The door to the bathroom stayed slightly ajar, revealing pale light spilling across tiles that looked too clean for a place this old. The air inside the room felt heavier the longer I stood there. Then the lights flickered. Once, twice, then again in a pattern. That didn't feel random anymore. It was slow at first, then precise, like a signal repeating itself for something that understood it. I told myself it was faulty wiring. Old hotels always had faulty wiring, but the rhythm kept returning. Pause, glow, pause, glow. Each cycle made the air feel tighter. The mirror fog thickened slightly as I watched, just enough that I couldn't tell if my reflection was steady. I stepped closer. That's when I noticed it. My reflection didn't follow properly. At first it was subtle, half a second behind. A delay so small my mind almost corrected it before I could believe it. I lifted my hand. The reflection lifted after me. Not together. Not in sync. Late. Always late. I lowered my hand slowly. The mirror image followed too slowly, like it was thinking before it moved. A cold pressure formed behind my eyes. The bathroom breathing stopped. Complete silence. Then resumed again, softer this time, as if it realized I was listening. I stepped back. The hallway outside my room seemed darker than before when I glanced through the doorframe. The lights along it dimmed in sequence, but only when I looked at certain doors. Room 311. Dark. Room 313. Dim. I blinked. The pattern stopped. The hallway returned to normal. I tried to convince myself I was tired. Travel does that sometimes. Makes everything feel slightly off. But then, a knock. Not on my door. On the mirror. From inside it. A single, soft impact against glass that shouldn't have depth. I froze. The fog inside the mirror shifted slightly, as if something had leaned closer from the other side. My reflection didn't move this time. It just watched me, still half a second behind reality. The bathroom light flickered again, longer this time, and for just an instant, I saw something in the mirror that wasn't me. Not clearly, not fully formed, just the impression of presence standing where I stood, but not matching my posture. Wrong shoulders, wrong stillness, wrong timing. I turned my head sharply. The room behind me was empty. When I looked back, the mirror was normal again. Almost, except the fog had spread further now, curling inward like breath held too long. I stepped away from it. The hallway outside felt longer than before. Or maybe it always had been. The air in the room stayed warm. Too warm for something unoccupied. And behind the bathroom door, the breathing started again. Soft, patient, waiting. I didn't open it. Not yet, but I could feel it listening. And the mirror kept watching me move a little too late. The hotel didn't sleep. Or maybe it did, and I was the only thing still awake inside it. The clock on the wall glowed faintly. 3:07 a.m., casting a weak blue light across the room. The air had turned colder now, but not in a natural way. It felt adjusted, controlled, like the building had decided what temperature I should feel. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps. Not on the door I expected, but on the idea of it. When I opened it, no one stood there at first. Just a tray, resting perfectly on the floor as if it had always been there. Steam rose from the food in slow, thin threads. The smell was familiar in a way that made my stomach tighten. Things I never ordered, but somehow still recognized. Things I usually avoided. I hadn't spoken to anyone. I hadn't called anything. Yet room service had arrived anyway. The hallway behind the tray stretched too far in both directions. The lights along it dimmed in uneven pulses, as if reacting to my attention. When I looked left, the corridor felt normal. When I looked right, it felt longer, like distance itself shifted depending on where I focused. I looked down again. The server was gone. No footsteps. No echo. No retreat. Just absence. And the tray was still warm. I brought it inside without thinking. The door closed behind me with a soft click that felt too final. Inside the room, the fog on the mirror had thickened slightly again. Not enough to hide reflection, just enough to blur edges that should have been sharp. The food sat untouched on the desk. And yet, I knew I hadn't chosen it. That realization settled slowly, like something sinking into water that refuses to ripple. A second knock came. I didn't move. It came again, but slower, heavier. I opened the door without wanting to. Another tray stood there, exactly the same, still warm, still untouched. But this time, the hallway looked different, longer, not physically extending in a visible way, but emotionally stretching, like depth without end. The carpet pattern repeated itself further than it should have, looping into itself in soft, impossible symmetry. The air smelled faintly of something like metal and damp paper. I stepped out. The door behind me closed without my hand. I turned quickly. No one there. Just silence pressing against the walls. Then I saw the elevator. Down the hall. Its metal doors slightly open, breathing light into the corridor like a slow inhale. The button panel was new. Or maybe it had always been there, and I just hadn't noticed. One button stood out. B3. It wasn't part of the original design. The elevator doors closed the moment I stepped inside. Too smooth, too aware. The descent began, but it didn't feel like going down. It felt like shifting sideways. The walls of the elevator vibrated softly, not in motion, but in direction. The sensation of movement came from somewhere wrong, like the building was sliding itself across something I couldn't see. Then the doors opened. Same hallway, but empty. No furniture, no sound, no rooms marked clearly. just a hollow version of the hotel I had just left. The elevator closed again, moved, opened again. Same place, but slightly different now. Lights flickering in reverse rhythm. The third stop came slower, and that's when I heard it. A child's voice, humming through the speaker above the panel. Soft, off-key, repeating no pattern I could recognize. I pressed the open button. Nothing. Pressed again. Still nothing. The elevator didn't respond like a machine anymore. It responded like patience, waiting for something I didn't understand. The humming grew clearer now, closer, as if it wasn't coming from the system at all, but from inside the walls. The doors open again. The hallway outside looked almost normal now. Almost, except every door number was slightly off, shifted by one digit, like the hotel was counting incorrectly, but confidently. I stepped forward. The elevator doors did not close behind me this time. They stayed open, watching, and somewhere deep in the corridor, the humming followed without moving at all. The hotel felt quieter after 3 a.m., but not peaceful, more like something had turned its attention inward. The hallway outside room 402 stretched in a slow, uneasy silence. Carpet dim under pale ceiling light, patterns repeating too perfectly to feel accidental. Every few seconds, the lights above flickered, but only in sections, never the whole corridor at once. Room 403 sat directly across from mine. It had no visible movement, no sound. Still felt occupied, not in a way I could explain. In a way I could only sense when I stopped thinking too hard. That was when I noticed it. A faint shift beneath the door. Not light, not shadow. Something passing. Slow, irregular, like a presence moving without deciding where to go. I stepped closer. The hallway light above me dimmed instantly, only for this section. Room 403's number plate reflected faintly, but the reflection looked slightly delayed, like the metal itself hesitated before showing reality. I raised my hand toward the door. Stopped. The handle was warm, not from heat in the room, but from contact, recent contact. I didn't turn it, yet it still felt like something had just let go from the other side. A faint knock came, from inside, soft, once, then silence. Down the hall, a housekeeping cart rolled slowly past, though I never saw who pushed it. It stopped exactly outside occupied rooms, paused for a moment, then continued. The wheels left faint damp marks that dried backward, as if time was correcting itself in reverse. The cart didn't stop at room 403. It paused, longer than before, then moved on. That unsettled me more than if it had stopped. I looked down at the floor. The carpet pattern near room 403 seemed slightly distorted, like it had been pressed too many times in one direction. A subtle slope in the design, pointing toward the door. Then the hallway lights began blinking, not randomly, in sequence, left to right, slow enough to follow. I realized something uncomfortable as I watched. The pattern wasn't just lighting. It was structure, a repeating code forming across the entire hallway. Each blink aligned with a faint knock against the walls, somewhere out of sight, but never out of rhythm. Knock, light, pause, knock, light. I tried stepping back, but my attention stayed locked on it. The sequence changed when I moved, adjusting, reacting, like it knew I was reading it. For a moment, the blinking formed something recognizable, a shape, like a map, the hotel layout, briefly visible in pulses of light, then gone, as if it never existed. My breathing slowed without permission. I didn't realize I had started responding. Small movements, tiny head turns, following the pattern like it was asking questions I didn't hear. Room 403 remained silent, but the door handle shifted slightly, just a fraction, turning inward, then stopping. From inside, a faint scraping sound traveled along the bottom edge of the door, like something moving closer, but unsure whether it should arrive. I backed away slowly. The hallway light stuttered again. This time, some numbers above doors flickered into existence that didn't match anything in the sequence. Rooms that shouldn't exist, blinking briefly into reality, then disappearing again. I stopped walking. So did the lights. The silence that followed felt heavier than before. And for a brief moment, I could have sworn room 403 was no longer just a room. but an absence pretending to be one, a space waiting to be completed. Inside, something shifted again behind the door. Not knocking this time, just presence, still, listening. And I realized I was no longer sure if I had been the one observing it, or if it had been observing the pattern I had started to follow. The elevator felt different the moment I stepped back inside it. Not broken, not old, just aware in a way it shouldn't have been. The metal walls were colder than the hallway, smooth under my fingertips, almost damp like they had been sealed for too long without air. The light above flickered once, then steadied into a pale glow that made everything inside feel slightly washed out. That's when I noticed a new button. B3. It wasn't there before. It sat below the usual floor numbers like it had always belonged there, quietly waiting to be seen. The plastic around it looked newer than everything else. Too clean compared to the scratched surface of the panel. I didn't remember pressing anything, but the doors closed anyway. Softly, like they already knew. The elevator didn't drop. It shifted, sideways. Not in a way I could physically point to, but in a way my balance understood before my mind did. The sensation wasn't vertical movement. It was displacement, as if the building itself had tilted reality and asked me to stay still while it rearranged the direction of gravity. The hum of the elevator changed pitch. Lower, then uneven. The lights inside flickered, and for a split second, the reflection in the metal walls didn't match me exactly. My posture was slightly off. My head angled a fraction too late. Then it corrected itself, or pretended to. The first stop came without warning. The doors opened. Same hotel floor, or something pretending to be it. The hallway outside was identical in shape, but wrong in feeling. The carpet pattern repeated too evenly, stretching further than memory allowed. The lights were on, but no warmth came from them. No sound, no movement, just stillness pretending to be occupied. I didn't step out. The doors closed again on their own. The elevator shifted sideways once more. A soft vibration ran through the walls, like something dragging itself along the structure of the building rather than moving through it. The second stop opened. Same floor again, but emptier. The doors revealed identical doors lined perfectly down the hallway, yet every room number was missing its final digit. Where there should have been 401, there was 40. Where there should have been 402, there was 40 again, repeated, incomplete, like the hotel was trying to remember itself and failing halfway through. A faint sound came through the open doorway, a child's voice, humming, not from the hallway, from the elevator speaker above me, soft, broken rhythm, repeating a tune that almost formed structure but never completed it. The doors closed again before I could fully process it. The third stop felt heavier, slower, like the elevator had begun to resist its own movement. The walls creaked faintly, not from pressure, but from adjustment, as if the structure around me was being rotated without moving anything physically. The doors opened. Same hallway again, but this time, something stood at the far end, not clearly visible, just a distortion in the air where light bent incorrectly, as if something was present but refusing to be fully rendered. The humming grew louder, closer, inside the elevator speaker now, no longer distant. The exit button blinked once, then went dark. I pressed it. Nothing. Pressed again. Still nothing. The panel felt unresponsive, not like it was broken, but like it had stopped recognizing input altogether, as if the elevator no longer accepted the idea of leaving. The doors remained open longer than before. The hallway outside seemed to stretch further while I watched it, depth increasing in subtle increments that only became noticeable when I tried to focus on a fixed point. The far end of the corridor blurred slightly, then sharpened again, like breathing. The humming shifted tone, almost matching the rhythm of the elevator's vibration. I stepped slightly forward, without meaning to. The floor under me didn't feel like it dropped or rose. It felt like it slid. The elevator was no longer moving through floors. It was moving through versions of the same floor, alternate layers stacked incorrectly. The doors closed again. This time, no pause. The elevator shifted sideways harder than before. My shoulder brushed the wall, but the sensation lagged behind the motion, like my body and the space I occupied were not fully synchronized. The hum stopped abruptly. Complete silence. Then, a soft knock came from above the ceiling panel. Once. Then again. Not rhythmic this time. Curious. Like something listening from directly above the elevator. The next stop opened into darkness. Not a hallway. Not a floor. Just absence-shaped like space. The elevator lights flickered, barely illuminating the threshold where nothing existed beyond it. For a moment, I thought I saw movement in the dark. Not approaching. Just present. Waiting. The door stayed open longer this time. Long enough for the silence to feel structured. Then they closed. Slowly. Reluctantly. And as the elevator shifted sideways again, I realized something I couldn't explain properly even to myself. The building wasn't taking me anywhere. It was rotating me through places that were already here. And somewhere inside that rotation, something was learning the pattern of where I would appear next. Room 403 sat across the hallway like it had been carved into the building rather than built into it. The corridor outside felt unusually still that night. No footsteps. No distant hum of pipes. Just a faint buzz of overhead lights struggling to stay consistent. As if each flicker required effort. I stood outside my door longer than I should have. Not because I wanted to, but because something in room 403 felt active, even in silence. The air near its door carried a slight warmth, different from the rest of the hallway. Not heat from inside, but something residual, like a presence had recently leaned close and left part of itself behind. I didn't touch the handle. Not immediately, but I noticed it first. It was slightly warm. Not enough to confirm anything, but enough to doubt everything. Then came the sound, a soft shift from inside the room. Not footsteps, not movement with purpose, more like something adjusting itself in place. I stepped back instinctively. The hallway lights reacted, only above room 403. They dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed again, in sequence, not random, not broken, intentional, left to right across the corridor. The lights began to blink in a slow, repeating rhythm. Each pulse felt timed with something unseen, like the building itself was breathing in a coded pattern. I watched without meaning to focus. The sequence repeated. Once, then again, and again. Something about it started to feel familiar, like a system trying to communicate without language. Behind the pattern, faint knocking began along the walls. Soft, evenly spaced, matching the light pulses exactly. I took a step closer, without realizing it. The pattern responded. Slower now, more deliberate, as if acknowledging attention. A faint distortion appeared in my vision when I stared too long at the sequence. The hallway didn't just blink anymore. It formed structure between light and darkness. Lines, shapes, a shifting outline of the hotel itself, briefly visible inside the flicker. Rooms, corridors, connections I had not noticed before. Then gone. Room 403 remained still, but the handle shifted again, just slightly, turning inward a fraction, then stopping, waiting. From inside the door, a soft scraping sound traveled along the bottom edge. Not loud enough to be a threat, not quiet enough to ignore. It moved slowly, like something deciding whether it wanted to reach the surface or stay hidden. The lights blinked again, this time faster. My attention locked into the sequence before I realized it. Left, right, center, repeat. The pattern began to feel less like observation and more like instruction. My eyes followed it without resistance. My breathing slowed in response. Not calm, controlled. Then I noticed something unsettling. When I blinked, the pattern didn't pause. It continued even in my absence, as if it didn't need me to watch anymore. Just participation. Room 403 finally made a sound. A single knock. From inside. Soft. Measured. Then silence again. The hallway lights froze in their sequence. Everything held still for a moment too long. Like the system was waiting for confirmation. Then the pattern resumed. But different now. It wasn't random. It was directional. Pointing. Each flicker aligned toward room 403. Narrowing focus like a path being drawn directly into the door. I stepped back. The carpet beneath me felt subtly uneven, as if the floor had developed a slope toward the room. A gentle pull, not physical, but perceptual, like the building wanted me closer. Without moving at all, the handle turned again, more fully this time, not opening, just acknowledging movement. Inside, something shifted closer to the door, not rushing, approaching with certainty. The lights across the hallway formed the pattern once more, but now I saw it clearly. It wasn't just blinking, it was mapping. The entire hotel briefly revealed in pulses of light. Floors, corridors, intersections, all converging on a single point. Room 403. Then everything snapped back to normal. Too quickly, too cleanly, as if nothing had happened. But the silence that followed felt heavier. More aware, the door remained closed. Yet the presence behind it no longer felt contained. It felt positioned, like it had finally understood where the threshold was. And I realized something I didn't want to accept. The blinking lights weren't warning me about room 403. They were training me to notice it. The hallway had stopped feeling like a hallway. It felt more like a corridor of repeating breaths. Light, shadow, light again. Each cycle softer than the last. Each flicker pulling the building into a rhythm I couldn't ignore anymore. I stood still, watching the ceiling lights above me. They blinked, not randomly, not faulty, in sequence, left to right, then right to left, then a pause that always felt a little too long, like the building itself was deciding whether I was still supposed to be watching. The carpet beneath my feet had begun to feel familiar in the worst way, not comforting familiarity, repetition, as if I had already walked this exact stretch before more times than I could remember. Then the knocking started again, soft, from the walls, not loud enough to be alarming, just persistent enough to be undeniable. Each knock matched the blink of a light, perfectly timed, like the hotel was breathing through its structure. I found myself tracking it without thinking. Blink, knock, blink, knock. And somewhere in that pattern, I realized something was forming, a shape, not visible in the usual sense, but present in the way my attention kept returning to the same points along the hallway. Certain doors seemed to stand out during specific flashes of light, as if briefly highlighted by something I couldn't fully see. Some numbers flickered incorrectly, not broken, unreal. Doors labeled with combinations that didn't stay long enough to be memorized. And every time I tried to focus on one, it disappeared back into normal numbering. Then I saw it, at the far end of the corridor, a cleaning cart, moving slowly. No person pushing it, just motion, quiet and steady. The wheels didn't squeak. They didn't sound like wheels at all. More like soft dragging across carpet that should have resisted movement, but didn't. It stopped outside room 402, paused, then continued. No hesitation, no reason, just pattern. It moved like it was following something invisible in the sequence of lights above. I stepped back slightly. The cart didn't react to me. It wasn't aware of me in the way I understood awareness. It was aware of occupancy. It stopped only outside rooms that were being lived in, even if no one had entered them, even if I wasn't sure I was still supposed to be here. The hallway lights blinked again. The cart paused outside my room this time, not directly, but close enough that I felt the attention shift. A faint dampness marked the carpet beneath it. Footprints, but they didn't behave correctly. They appeared, then slowly faded backward, like time was trying to undo them, but failing in the wrong direction. The cart resumed movement, slowly, passing me, no acknowledgement, just continuation of something larger than observation. On its upper shelf, something caught the light, a shard of mirror, small, irregular. It reflected the hallway, but not the hallway I was standing in. It showed a slightly different version of it, longer, darker, with doors that didn't exist in front of me. I stared at it too long. The reflection shifted slightly, not because the cart moved, but because something inside the shard adjusted its angle from within. The cleaning cart stopped again, this time directly beneath a blinking light. The sequence above intensified for a moment, faster, tighter, like the system was focusing. The mirror shard reflected something behind me, but when I turned, nothing was there. Stillness returned instantly, too clean. The cart rolled forward again, and as it passed the next door, a fresh towel slipped out onto the floor, perfectly folded, Still warm, even though no one had touched it. I crouched slightly without realizing. The towel smelled faintly of steam and clothes rooms. Rooms that had been occupied recently or repeatedly. Behind me, the lights blinked in sequence again, but now the pattern felt different. Less like communication, more like continuation. The cart stopped at the end of the hallway, paused, then turned, but instead of leaving the corridor, it faced back toward me, still without a person, still without sound. The mirror shard tilted slightly upward, and in its reflection, I saw the hallway behind me blink one extra time, a delay that didn't exist in reality. The cart remained still, watching nothing, or watching everything at once. Then slowly it began to move again, but now it wasn't following the lights. It was following the rhythm I hadn't realized I had started to match. The lobby was quieter than before, but not empty. It never felt empty anymore, even when no one moved through it. The air still carried the impression of recent presence, like conversations had only just stopped speaking and were waiting to resume. The guest book sat on the reception desk. Old leather, soft edges, slightly worn where too many hands had turned its pages. I don't remember walking toward it, but I remember standing in front of it. The ink smelled faintly metallic, like it hadn't fully settled into paper. Names were listed neatly across the page, room numbers beside them, dates that looked correct at first glance, then less correct the longer I stared. Something about the structure shifted subtly each time I blinked. A name repeated twice, then 3 times. Not copied, rewritten, each version slightly different, as if the system was correcting itself while still failing to become consistent. I turned a page. The ink was still wet, even though no one had touched it. My fingers hovered just above the surface, not making contact. Still, I felt like it knew I was there. Then I saw it. My name, already written, before I had arrived. Room number beside it matched my current room exactly, but I hadn't checked in that way. Not officially, not consciously. A faint pressure formed in my chest, like recognition that didn't belong to memory. I looked up toward the reception desk. No one was there, but the chair behind it had shifted slightly. Not pulled out, not pushed in, just adjusted, as if someone had stood up a moment ago and decided not to leave a trace. The guest book page turned on its own. Slowly, deliberately, I didn't touch it. The next entry appeared before my eyes had fully focused. Another name, then another. Some repeated, some identical. Some felt like echoes of the same identity split across different lines. The ink shimmered slightly under the lobby light, as if it hadn't decided whether it was dry or still forming. Then, softly, a question appeared at the bottom of the page. No handwriting movement, no visible writing process, just text becoming present. Which room are you in now? The lobby lights flickered once, then steadied. I didn't answer. The question remained, waiting. The page didn't turn, but the ink shifted slightly, as if expecting response. I stepped back. The floor behind me felt longer than it should have. That was the first time I noticed the hallway outside the lobby didn't match the one I remembered. It extended too far in one direction, not physically stretching in a visible way, but unfolding in perception, like distance had lost agreement with itself. The carpet pattern repeated, then repeated again. Doors along the corridor were numbered correctly at first glance, then incorrectly when I focused. Some numbers changed when I looked away, and returned when I looked back. I started walking. The hallway responded, not visibly, but in timing. My steps didn't echo the way they should have. They arrived slightly late, then slightly early, like the building was unsure when I had actually placed my foot down. The lights above dimmed as I passed certain points, but not consistently. Only specific sections reacted, as if the corridor recognized intervals rather than movement. The guest book question lingered in my mind even though I had left it behind. Which room are you in now? I turned back once. The lobby looked farther away than before, not smaller, just distant in a way that didn't match how far I had walked. Then I realized something worse. I couldn't tell where I had started anymore. The hallway kept extending subtly each time I tried to measure it with memory. Doors multiplied in places I didn't recall passing. and the carpet pattern shifted direction slightly, always pointing forward, even when I turned around. Behind me, silence deepened. Ahead, more doors appeared, some slightly open, some slightly warm when I passed, and somewhere in the distance, I thought I heard the guestbook page turn again, even though I had left it closed. The room felt quieter than it should have. Not peaceful quiet, controlled quiet, like sound had been removed instead of fading away naturally. I stood near the center of the room, listening to the walls more than the air itself. The hum of the building was still there, but deeper now, less mechanical, more intentional. Then I noticed a vent, above the bed, a small metal grill that hadn't drawn my attention before. It exhaled softly. Not air, something closer to presence. I stepped closer, without meaning to, and then I heard it, a whisper, coming from inside the vent. Not loud, not clear, but close enough that I could feel the words forming before they fully arrived. It sounded like me, not my voice exactly, but the rhythm of my thoughts, repeated back with slight delay. I froze. The vent stayed still, then whispered again, a fragment this time. Something I had thought only seconds earlier. Not spoken, not shared, just thought. The air in the room tightened slightly, as if the walls were leaning in. The vent shifted tone, not louder, more precise, like it was learning how to finish what I hadn't said yet. I stepped back. The mirror on the wall caught my reflection, but I didn't focus on it this time. It didn't matter. Not yet, because on the table beside the bed, the key was there. The same key I had been given at reception, but now it felt different, heavier, as if it had absorbed the weight of every door it hadn't opened yet. I picked it up slowly. The metal was warm, not from my hand, from something else, something residual, something waiting. The vent whispered again, this time closer, almost directly behind my ear, though I hadn't moved. You're still here. I didn't respond. The key turned slightly in my hand, without being moved, not physically, just suggestion. I walked toward the door. It looked normal. That was the worst part. Normal wood, normal frame, normal lock. But when I pressed the key into it, it didn't fit properly. It slid in anyway, too easily, then stopped halfway, like the lock was refusing recognition. I tried again. The key turned, but the door didn't open. Instead, the hallway beyond it flickered for a fraction of a second. Not the hallway I remembered. A different one. Same shape, same structure, but wrong in alignment, as if it belonged to another version of the hotel that had been layered underneath this one. I pulled the key out. The vent went silent. Complete silence. That felt worse than the whisper. Then I heard footsteps. Inside the walls. Not outside. Inside. Slow movement traveling along the structure of the room itself. I looked at the mirror. My reflection stood still for half a second too long, then moved without me, not mimicking, leading. I turned back to the door. The key felt warmer now, almost uncomfortable. I tried the lock again. Same result. No opening. But this time, the door responded, not by unlocking, but by revealing something behind it for a split moment. Another room, identical layout, same bed, same mirror, same vent, but the bed was already occupied. A shape lay beneath the sheets. Still, perfectly still, not asleep in any natural way, just paused, like a version of me that had stopped responding. The vision snapped back to normal. The door was still closed. The key stopped glowing. Then the vent whispered one final time, not fragmented, not broken, clear. You already tried this room. The air tightened. I stepped back, slowly, and as I did, I realized something I didn't want to confirm. The key wasn't unlocking rooms. It was checking them. And every time it failed, something inside the hotel remembered that I had tried. The night didn't feel like it was moving forward anymore. It felt like it was stretching, like time itself had started to loosen its shape inside the hotel. I stepped into the hallway, expecting it to be the same distance as before. It wasn't. At first, it looked normal. Doors aligned neatly, carpet running straight, light steady and pale above. But the moment I started walking, something subtle changed. The corridor didn't end where it should have. It continued, just slightly further. Not enough to notice immediately, but enough that my arrival at the end never quite arrived. My footsteps landed softly on the carpet, but the sound never returned in time. Each echo came delayed, as if the hallway was thinking before it decided to reflect me back. Doors passed me slowly, too slowly, or maybe I was moving incorrectly through them. Some room numbers repeated again, then shifted when I looked away. The pattern on the carpet began to feel directional, not forward, but forward adjacent, like the hallway was guiding me without admitting it was doing so. I turned back once. The distance behind me had changed, not dramatically, just enough that the point I had started from no longer felt reachable in a single glance. The corridor had extended while I wasn't paying attention, not physically visible, but conceptually wrong. Then I noticed something worse. The lights overhead were no longer evenly spaced in effect. Certain sections of the hallway reacted differently to my presence. Some dimmed when I approached, others brightened, as if the building was categorizing my movement, measuring me in segments. I kept walking, but the hallway kept adjusting, like it was learning how far I was willing to go before I questioned it. Then I reached the elevator again. I didn't remember choosing to return, but it was there, waiting. The doors were already open slightly, as if they had stopped mid-action and decided to remain in that state until I acknowledged them. Inside, the air felt colder, more compressed. The button panel glowed faintly, except for one, a floor number that shouldn't have existed in memory. Between floors, no label, just a blank indicator that flickered when I looked at it too long. I stepped inside. The doors closed immediately. No hesitation. The elevator began to move, but it didn't descend. It stopped, mid-motion, suspended. The sensation wasn't physical movement anymore. It was structural hesitation, like the elevator had paused between decisions, between directions, between states of reality. The lights inside flickered once, then stabilized into a dim, uneasy glow. I pressed no buttons, but the panel still responded. Floor numbers shifted slightly on their own, rearranging themselves like they were unsure of their own order. Then came the sound, a soft knock, from above, not outside the elevator, inside the ceiling. One knock, then silence, then another, closer this time. The elevator lights dimmed further. The display stopped showing floors entirely, just a single symbol, unstable, changing shape too quickly to memorize. The elevator didn't move, but something outside it did. I felt it in the walls. A shifting pressure, like the building itself was rotating around the elevator shaft. The idea of direction stopped making sense. Up didn't feel like up. Down didn't feel like down. Only transition remained. Then the doors opened, not to a floor, but to absence, a hallway that looked like the hotel, but only partially formed. Doors existed, but their numbers were faint, as if they were still being written. The carpet stretched into a blur at the edges, dissolving into something unreadable. No sound came from it, not even silence, just missing presence. The elevator stayed open longer than it should have, as if waiting for acknowledgement. The knocking above stopped, completely, and in that stillness, I realized something had changed. The elevator wasn't stopping between floors anymore. It was stopping between versions. And whatever stood above the ceiling wasn't knocking to get in. It was checking whether I had already arrived somewhere else. I stopped trusting stillness, because in this hotel, stillness wasn't absence. It was adjustment. The room looked the same when I returned. Same bed, same mirror, same dim light trembling slightly against the walls. But I had learned by now that same didn't mean unchanged. It meant temporarily consistent. I turned away for only a moment, a breath, a blink. When I looked back, the chair near the window had shifted, not dragged, not moved loudly, just repositioned, as if it had decided a better angle existed when I wasn't looking. I stood very still. The air felt warmer near the mirror, cooler near the door, like the room had developed preferences. I didn't touch anything, not anymore, because everything changed when I didn't. A faint vibration ran through the floor. Not footsteps, not machinery. Something subtler, like the room adjusting its weight distribution. The bed creaked softly, once, then settled. But the imprint on the sheets looked slightly different than before. Less like pressure, more like expectation. I turned slowly toward the mirror. My reflection followed too quickly. That was new. Earlier, it had been delayed. Now it was ahead, watching me before I moved. I stepped back. The reflection stayed closer than it should have, then returned to normal timing, as if correcting itself, as if trying not to reveal too much. That's when the phone rang. It wasn't on the desk. It wasn't near the bed. It was inside the wall. A sharp, sudden sound that came from somewhere behind the plaster, vibrating through the room in uneven pulses. The sound didn't echo. It propagated, like it was already part of the structure before it became audible. I froze. The ringing continued, not consistent, not rhythmic, almost like it was reacting to whether I was paying attention. I stepped closer to the wall. The sound intensified. Right beside me now. Inside the surface. Not behind it. Inside it. I pressed my palm gently against the wallpaper. The vibration responded immediately. A soft tremor, like something acknowledging contact. The ringing stopped for half a second, then resumed louder. Closer. A faint outline of a phone. Receiver seemed to exist within the tone itself. Not visible, but implied. Like the sound had a shape I could almost recognize if I listened long enough. I pulled my hand back. The ringing didn't stop. Instead, a faint voice came through the static. Not speaking clearly. Just breathing. Measured. Patient. Then a whisper. Too close to be real distance. You're in the room now. I stepped away from the wall. The mirror reflected me instantly. Too instantly. Like it was anticipating where I would stand before I chose it. The bed shifted slightly again. Not enough to see movement. Just enough to feel the change in alignment. As if the room had reoriented itself around my position. The phone inside the wall rang again. This time softer. But more deliberate. Like it knew I had heard it. I walked toward the door. It felt slightly heavier than before. Not physically locked. Just resistant. The hallway outside seemed dimmer through the gap. Longer again. Always longer. The lights outside flickered once in sequence, slow, left to right, before stabilizing. That pattern again. Always returning. Always watching. Behind me, the ringing stopped. Complete silence returned instantly. That silence felt worse than the sound, because it meant something had decided I was listening enough already. And as I reached for the door handle, I noticed something I hadn't before. The mirror reflection in the room wasn't aligned with my movement anymore. It wasn't following me. It was staying behind, standing exactly where I had been a moment earlier, waiting for me to notice. Late night in the hotel. Winter pressing cold against the glass. The lobby lights pale and trembling. Dust hanging in the air like slow fog. My room key feels heavier tonight, warm in my palm, as if it remembers places I have not yet seen. It no longer fits my door, the lock resisting with a soft metallic breath. Like something inside has changed its mind. Yet it turns in other doors along the corridor. Doors that should not exist, opening without resistance into identical rooms. Inside each room, I see myself asleep, still and pale, breathing in slow rhythm under thin white sheets. The ceiling fan hums without motion, and the mirror beside it reflects me standing there, but slightly out of sync. When I touch the glass, the key in my hand grows warmer, almost alive, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. I step back, but the reflection does not. It stays closer to the mirror than I am. Down the hall, the elevator waits. Doors open like a patient mouth. I step inside, and the world freezes between floors, numbers flickering without movement, drifting like broken thoughts. Something knocks above the ceiling panel. Soft at first, then closer, as if pacing just above my head. The emergency phone crackles when I lift it, connecting to an empty room that breathes static and silence. No voice answers. Only a distant hum that feels like it is listening back. When the elevator finally moves, the lights outside the shaft reveal silhouettes standing still where no hallway should be. A corridor appears behind a maintenance door, I do not remember passing, lined with mirrors instead of walls. Each reflection shows different versions of the hotel, shifting like timelines layered on top of each other. One mirror shows me leaving the hotel, suitcase in hand, but I have never entered that version. The corridor vanishes when I reach for it, leaving only drywall and dust. A guest in the lounge whispers about a woman who has lived here longer than anyone remembers. Staff deny her existence without looking up. Their voices flat and rehearsed like old recordings, but in the mirrors behind them, she appears, standing still, watching without blinking. Her room number changes each day, written in fading ink on the registry pages. She leaves messages under doors that predict things I have not yet done. That night, the power fails and the hotel collapses into structured darkness. Emergency lights flicker on, revealing corridors that feel rearranged, unfamiliar yet connected. Guests walk somewhere unseen, footsteps echoing without bodies attached to them. The generator hums beneath the building, but no one can locate its source. The darkness feels intentional, as if it is holding shape around us. The room phone rings again, even though no line should be active. Static pours from the receiver, and a voice breathes my name without speaking it fully. The wall beside the phone vibrates when I press my palm against it. When I disconnect the cord, the ringing grows louder instead of stopping. Furniture in my room shifts when I leave, always slightly rearranged when I return. Photos on the desk change expression when I am not looking directly at them. The bed turns itself toward the door, waiting as if expecting something. Every return feels like entering a different version of my own space. Behind a maintenance door, a stairwell opens, descending endlessly into soft, swallowing darkness. Footsteps echo upward from below, though no one is climbing down. The deeper I go, the walls feel warmer, almost breathing against my skin. At the bottom, I see the hotel from above, perfectly intact, as if nothing changed. A new guest arrives who moves exactly like me, always a moment ahead of my motion. Their room number is always one higher than mine, as if time itself is misaligned. Staff confuse us without hesitation. Their faces empty of concern or recognition. Only mirrors separate us, showing which one is real and which one repeats. Housekeeping staff appear without faces, their features blurred like wet paper. They clean already clean rooms, humming softly without rhythm or end. Inside their carts are objects I remember losing years ago. They pause whenever I watch, as if observation interrupts their existence. The ceiling above my room rises and falls slowly, like breathing I cannot stop hearing. Dust drifts in that rhythm, synchronized with something inside the walls. Light fixtures sway without wind, casting shadows that do not match anything present. A faint pulse runs through the room, matching my heartbeat too closely. Doors in the hallway open before I reach them, already unlocked, already waiting. Sometimes I hear footsteps arriving before I even decide to move. I begin to feel as if I arrive before I leave anywhere. Mirrors show me standing still in rooms I have not entered yet. Some reflections do not follow my movements at all. One version inside the glass slowly walks toward the surface. The mirror grows warm under my fingers, like skin remembering touch. A hidden floor appears in the elevator memory, with no button to call it. When I reach it, the hallway is fully lit, but abandoned. Rooms contain belongings of people whose names I do not recognize. The exit leads back to the same corridor, unchanged, looping softly. And then I understand something I cannot fully hold. A guest has never left this hotel. Not once, not ever. Their presence sits inside every mirror, every hallway, every breath I take. Their thoughts begin to sound like mine, folding into my own voice. The records erase the line between guest and room, until there is none left. The exit sign flickers, no longer guiding, only watching in silence. And I stop remembering where I began. Inside, the light is too pale, too still. It hums without vibration, like a thought suspended in air. I press a floor. The button feels slightly warm, almost used before me. The doors close, but the elevator does not move. Numbers above the door flicker, then change without motion. 3, 5, 2, 3 again, as if the building cannot decide where I belong. Minutes pass, but time feels folded pressed in like paper between fingers. The air grows heavier, and the walls seem closer than they were a moment ago. A soft knock comes from above the ceiling panel. Not loud, not urgent, just present. Then again, closer. I look up. The panel trembles slightly, dust falling in slow threads across the light. The emergency phone hangs on the wall, still and waiting. When I lift it, static fills my ear immediately, cold, endless, then a voiceless connection, not speaking, just breathing through an empty room on the other side, a room that feels occupied, without presence. When the elevator finally jerks into motion, it is too sudden, like something let go of it. Outside the glass, the shaft is no longer empty. Silhouettes stand in the narrow space beyond the walls, motionless, angled wrong, as if watching through surfaces that were never meant to be seen through. I don't look away. I can't tell if they're moving closer or if I am moving past them. The doors open into a hallway that was not there before. It replaces a wall I remember touching earlier. Now it stretches too far in both directions. Mirrors line every surface. Floor, walls. Even parts of the ceiling reflect fractured versions of the hotel. Not one timeline. Many, layered, overlapping, breathing against each other. I take a step forward. My reflection does not match. Some versions of me turn slightly before I do. Others lag behind. A few are standing still, watching me arrive instead of move. One reflection raises a hand and waves. But I did not. I stop. The corridor continues to shift softly around my hesitation, like it is aware of being observed. In one mirror, I see myself walking away from the hotel, suitcase in hand, shoulders lowered, morning light, but I have never reached that exit, never even approached it. I step closer. The mirror shows me noticing the mirror before I do, and then nothing. The corridor disappears when I reach for it. Only wall remains. Plain, dusty, uncertain, like it was never allowed to exist in the first place. In the lobby, someone is speaking too quietly to hear clearly. A guest mentions her like it is normal, a woman who has lived here longer than memory allows. The staff do not react. They don't deny it loudly. They simply erase it with silence. No record, no name, no presence. But I see her in the mirrors behind them. Always behind them, standing still in reflection, never in physical space. Her face is blurred at the edges, like it refuses to be fully remembered. When I look directly, she is not there. When I don't, she appears again. Her room number changes on the registry board each time I pass it. Then 21, then something unlisted, like the hotel cannot agree where she belongs either. That night, a note appears under my door. No footsteps, no sound. Just paper sliding through space that was locked a moment ago. The message is simple. It describes something I have not yet done in exact detail, including the time I will realize I have already done it. My hands feel colder after reading it. The lights die without warning. Not a flicker. A decision. The hotel collapses into darkness. So complete it feels structured, like it was designed rather than absent. For a moment, there is nothing. Then emergency lights awaken slowly. Too dim, too deliberate. They do not restore the hotel. They reveal a different version of it. Corridors I have never walked before stretch where walls used to be. Doors appear slightly ajar, though no one opens them. And somewhere inside the building, footsteps begin, not approaching, just existing. Multiple sets, unseen, unlocated. The sound moves through walls without disturbing them. I press my hand against the corridor wall. It feels warm, not heated, alive. Below us, the generator hums. But there is no direction to it. No room, no source. Only vibration that feels like it is inside everything at once. The darkness is not empty. It is organized. I realize that when I move, the hotel adjusts slightly to remain consistent around me, like I am the only thing it has to correct for. And in that thought, I stop trusting the shape of anything I see. The emergency lights continue to glow, but they feel less like illumination, more like observation. Night settles and like dust sealing every edge of the room. The hotel feels quieter than silence, as if even silence has been reduced. I sit on the edge of the bed. The mattress shifts slightly under me, though no weight changes. Then the phone rings. The sound is sharp in the still air, too alive for something that should be inactive. I look at it. No light on the panel. No signal from outside. Still ringing. When I lift the receiver, static floods through immediately, cold and endless, like breathing trapped inside a broken shell. Then a voice, not speaking words at first, just presence, listening too closely. It knows where I am standing. The bed creaks behind me, even though I have not moved. A pause. Then my name is almost formed through the static, not spoken fully, more like it is being remembered incorrectly. I turn toward the wall beside the phone. It vibrates under my palm, not from the phone, from inside it, as if the wall itself is holding the call. I disconnect the line. The ringing becomes louder, not from the phone anymore, from everywhere at once. The walls, the ceiling, the space behind my thoughts. I step back slowly, and the phone continues ringing without being connected to anything at all. Morning light never feels certain here. It enters the room like it is unsure whether it belongs. I leave for only a short while, a corridor walk, a loop around the same turning hallway. When I return, something is wrong, not broken, rearranged. The chair is closer to the mirror than I left it. The lamp is angled slightly differently, pointing into corners I don't remember existing. I stand still for a long time before stepping inside. The air feels repositioned, like it has been used without me. Photos on the desk shift when I am not looking directly at them, not dramatically, only enough to make doubt feel unavoidable. A smile in one frame is slightly more tired than before. The bed is now facing the door. It wasn't earlier. I am certain of that. Every time I leave, even for seconds, the room becomes unfamiliar again. Not a new room, my room, but corrected, as if something is trying to make it more accurate than my memory allows. I sit on the edge again. The mattress responds slowly, too slowly, like it remembers someone sitting here before me. A maintenance door in the corridor is open this time. I don't remember opening it. Inside is darkness shaped like depth. A staircase descends without visible end. No echo returns properly when I listen. Instead, footsteps rise from below. Not mine. Something moving upward while I remain still. I step in anyway. The air becomes softer with each step downward. Not easier. Softer. Like the walls are losing structure. My hand brushes aside. It feels warm. Almost wet. As if the building is sweating around me. The darkness is not empty. It is layered, stacked, breathing slowly through unseen distances. The deeper I go, the more the sound of the hotel above fades. But it never disappears. It changes direction instead. Footsteps now move upward past me, though I am the only one descending. At the bottom, there is no floor. Only a view. The hotel, seen from above, perfectly intact. Light still flickering in correct patterns. As if I never left it. As if I am looking at something that should not be below me, or something I should not be outside of. The lobby feels different when I return. Not louder, not emptier, just duplicated. A new guest stands near the counter. He moves slightly before I do, not copying, predicting. Every motion I consider appears in him a second earlier. The staff greet him and me with the same tone. Same name once, then corrected, then uncertain, then forgotten. His room number is always one ahead of mine. If I am 208, he is 209. If I move, his number changes first. I watch him carefully from across the lobby. He watches me back. But only mirrors show the difference. In reflection, I am never certain which one is real. He adjusts his sleeve. I feel mine tighten a moment later. He stops walking. I stop breathing slightly after. We are not copying each other. We are both being guided by something else using the same body twice. The staff no longer try to separate us. They simply stop noticing the difference entirely. And that is when I begin to understand. The hotel does not host guests. It duplicates them until distinction becomes unnecessary. They arrive without announcement. Housekeeping carts rolling softly through corridors that feel too narrow for movement. The staff do not have clear faces, not masks, not shadows, just absence where detail should be. Still, they work with precision, cleaning already clean rooms, polishing surfaces that do not show dirt. I follow one cart at a distance. It stops outside my room. The attendant pauses, not turning, not reacting, just stillness, like it senses me watching. The card holds objects that do not belong to today. A cracked wristwatch I once lost. A keychain I forgot years ago. A photograph folded in half that I never remembered taking. I step closer. The attendant hums softly. No words, just vibration through closed air. When I blink, it continues cleaning. When I do not blink, it stops, then resumes only when I look away. They never speak, only move in patterns that feel rehearsed by something larger than them, as if the hotel itself is practicing how to maintain memory without acknowledging it. One attendant turns slightly. The face is still missing, but I feel seen anyway, not by eyes, by recognition of presence. And then it continues cleaning a room that was already untouched, as if cleanliness is not the goal. Rewriting is. Night settles again, heavier than before, like the hotel is learning how to press down on itself. I lie in bed, but sleep feels far away, as if the room is holding it just outside reach. Above me, the ceiling moves, not visibly at first, only in rhythm, a slow rise and fall, like lungs remembering how to exist. The light fixture sways without wind, casting shadows that shift too late to belong to anything real. Dust drifts upward, then sideways, then downward again, never settling, always following that same unseen breath. I press 2 fingers to my chest. My heartbeat matches it. Exactly. The room does not feel empty anymore. It feels shared, not with someone, with something that does not need to be seen to occupy space. And when I close my eyes for a moment, the ceiling feels closer than before. Morning arrives without announcement. Doors in the hallway unlock before my hand reaches them. Not after touch, before intention. I stop in front of one. It opens slightly on its own, waiting. The hallway beyond feels already traveled, as if my footsteps have passed through it earlier and left a faint memory behind. Sound comes before movement now. Footsteps echo where no one has stepped yet. A cart rolls somewhere ahead before I hear it begin to move. Time feels misaligned, like the hotel is replaying moments of fraction early. I find myself arriving at places before deciding to leave them, turning corners I have not chosen yet. The staff do not react. They continue their work as if sequence is optional, as if order is only a suggestion. A door closes behind me without sound, but I remember hearing it shut before I entered. Mirrors appear more often now, not placed, not installed, just present where walls should be certain. In one reflection, I stand still, not moving, not blinking, just waiting. Another version appears beside it, also me, but slightly delayed, not copying movement, ignoring it entirely. I lift my hand. Neither reflection follows immediately. They remain frozen in different decisions. One of them slowly turns toward the glass from inside, not mirroring, approaching. The surface warms under my fingertips, like something pressing back from the other side. I step away. The reflections do not. They remain there, unchanged, watching a version of me that I no longer occupy. And for a moment, I wonder if I am the reflection that forgot to be still. The elevator panel flickers again tonight. Numbers shift in patterns that feel intentional but unreadable. Then a new option appears. No label, no history, just presence. The doors open before I choose. The floor is bright, too bright, empty in a way that feels curated rather than abandoned. No dust, no decay, no time. Rooms line the corridor, each filled with objects that feel personally arranged for people I do not recognize, but almost remember. A photograph of a child holding a key I think I once lost. A suitcase with my handwriting on it, though I do not recall writing it. The exit sign at the end of the hallway leads me back to the same corridor. Not another one. The same one. I try again. Same result. The loop is gentle, almost polite, as if the hotel is showing me the boundary, without allowing me to cross it. When I stop walking, the lights remain unchanged. Waiting for me to accept that direction no longer matters here. It begins without beginning. A thought that feels like mine, but arrives too early to be mine. Someone is still here, not arriving, not leaving, remaining. The hotel no longer separates rooms from guests, or guests from memory. They overlap until distinction becomes unnecessary. I hear thoughts that are not spoken. They feel like mine when I am not paying attention. Like something inside me is echoing from a deeper place in the building. Mirrors no longer show differences. Only repetition. Only continuation. The exit sign flickers in the hallway, no longer guiding anything outward. Only warning. Only reminder that direction used to exist. I walk toward it anyway. But each step feels less like movement and more like returning. And somewhere in the quiet structure of the hotel, I realize there is no leaving here. Only rooms adjusting to what I continue to become. And the thought that answers me has already been thinking itself long before I arrived.